Mr. President, we are grateful to Special Envoy for Syria Geir Pedersen and OCHA Director of Operations, Ms. Edem Wasornu, for their comprehensive reports on the situation in the Syrian Arab Republic, SAR. It is clear from these reports that the country continues to face an array of very acute challenges, and the successful resolution of these challenges is what Syria's future hinges on. Russia does hope that the brotherly Syrian people will be able to swiftly overcome the protracted period of instability and internal crisis, and embark on the path of national reconciliation and steady, sustainable economic development. At the same time, all Syrians should feel safe in their country. To this end, the Damascus leadership is well advised to undertake all necessary measures to ensure the cohesion of Syrian society and respect for the rights of all Syrian people, regardless of their ethnic or religious background. Unfortunately, we have recently had the opportunity to see that an inclusive Syria remains a far-off prospect. During clashes in Sueda between security forces and local armed groups, hundreds, if not thousands of people perished, just as was the case several months ago in Latakia and Tartus. UN human rights defenders have shared credible information about extrajudicial executions, abductions, destruction of private property, and looting. As a result, local people are intimidated. They are extremely vulnerable. According to the UN, critical infrastructure has been damaged. The number of internally displaced persons is growing rapidly. 145,000 people have been forced to flee their homes, as various estimates indicate. These people need urgent assistance. We call on OCHA to place the highest priority on addressing the vulnerability of religious and ethnic minorities, and to intensify efforts to expand the humanitarian presence in unstable and affected areas. For the time being, UN agencies still have very limited access to these areas. We've learnt that the UN humanitarians have to seek assistance from the Syrian Arab Red Crescent to deliver humanitarian aid. Under these circumstances, we insistently urge OCHA to ensure sustained and secure access to those in need. In this context, we believe that there is rationale behind the initiative to conduct an interagency UN mission, the main task of which would be to objectively assess the humanitarian situation on the ground and determine priority needs of the people affected. We deem it necessary to intensify cooperation with the Syrian authorities on this issue, and we count on them taking a constructive stance, which would allow us to organize such a mission as promptly as possible. We emphasize that using violence against civilians is unacceptable. We hope that the ceasefire agreement reached on July 16th will help dial down tensions and stabilize the situation in the south of Syria. We believe that there is no alternative to dialogue and national reconciliation, nor to respect for the rights of all representatives and communities within Syria's multi-confessional society. We note the decision taken by the Syrian authorities to establish a fact-finding committee to investigate into what happened. We do believe that the investigation of crimes must be independent, impartial, transparent, and in line with international legal standards. At the same time, we call on UN officials, including Mr. Pedersen, to keep the spotlight on this issue and provide objective assessments of what is going on. Ensuring justice and accountability in such cases is crucial for building trust, protecting civilians, and preventing further escalation of violence. Against this backdrop, we took note of the conclusion by the fact-finding committee established in the wake of numerous incidents of violence on the western coast of Syria. The committee confirms mass killings of Alawites and incitement of sectarian strife, noting that 1,426 people were killed then. Given the UNSC presidential statement of March, which strongly condemns the mass killings in Latakia and Tartus, we do expect the Syrian authorities to provide the Security Council with detailed information on the investigation that is being conducted, and we do hope that they will closely engage with the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General for Syria. Bringing all those responsible to justice, irrespective of their status and official position, is what we believe will help overcome the gulf of mistrust and fear engendered by this flare of violence. Greater efforts are needed also to deal with the issue of foreign terrorist fighters in ranks of the country's armed forces, with many of them openly sympathizing with terrorist groups. The level of terrorist threat in Syria remains high. The terrorist attack on June 22nd at the Antioch Orthodox Church of the Prophet Elias in eastern Damascus, which claimed the lives of more than 20 people and left dozens of Syrians wounded, deserves our strongest condemnation. We urge the Syrian authorities to intensify their efforts to combat terrorism and ensure proper protection of Orthodox holy sites, as well as to hold all those responsible to account. Another pressing issue is the reintegration of Kurds into a unified Syrian state and the implementation of the agreement reached between the central authorities and the Trans-Euphrates. We are alarmed by growing tensions in the northeast of the country, as well as by reports of isolated clashes between Syrian security forces and the Syrian Democratic Forces. We stand convinced that mutual distrust can be surmounted if Damascus takes effective steps to resolve the crisis in the south of the country and to ensure the delivery of justice when it comes to violence against Alawites and Christians. At the same time, we condemn the actions of Israel, which is playing the master in Syria as if it were its own backyard. Whatever well-intentions West Jerusalem is hiding behind, the point is that Israel is flagrantly violating Syrian sovereignty, conducting airstrikes, including in the very center of Damascus, arbitrarily declaring southern Syria a demilitarized zone and occupying a significant part of the country's territory. We reaffirm our unwavering position in favor of the need to respect the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of SAR. In this context, we are closely monitoring incipient Syrian-Israeli contacts on security issues, including the talks in Paris on July 25th. We stand convinced that dialogue is the only way for Israel to ensure its own security, provided the legitimate interests of Syria are fully taken into consideration. This is all the more so given that Damascus has sent repeated messages showing its willingness to build peaceful relations with all its neighbors, barring none. Mr. President, as we have heard today, the humanitarian situation in Syria remains extremely worrisome. The country is facing growing needs of the people amid instability and devastating effects of extreme weather events. Adverse weather conditions have created additional risks. Against the backdrop of existing problems in the agrarian sector, up to 75% of the country's wheat harvest is under threat due to drought and broken irrigation systems, which could seriously undermine food security and the supply of basic foodstuffs to millions of Syrians. We are equally disquieted by the forest fires in the province of Latakia, which have already destroyed over 15,000 hectares of forest and agricultural land and affected thousands of people. We are particularly outraged by the reports of arson, which terrorist groups allegedly claimed responsibility for. Such malicious acts are totally unacceptable. We have consistently supported the UN's efforts to provide humanitarian assistance to the Syrian people. In the current conditions, it is extremely important to ensure impartial, sustained and coordinated support for those most vulnerable. We expect the Syrian authorities to provide comprehensive assistance to humanitarian operations while being guided by the imperative of protecting the civilian population. Mr. President, in conclusion, I would like to stress that everything that is happening in Syria proves the fact that returning to the political process is the only game in town. This process should be led and implemented by all Syrians, without exception with the UN support. The parameters thereof are enshrined in UNSC Resolution 2254, and as part of this process the rights of all citizens of the country would be guaranteed. We fully support the efforts of the Special Envoy of the Secretary-General on this front. Russia is interested in rectifying the situation in the country so as to ensure its sovereignty, independence, unity, and territorial integrity. We intend to strengthen ties with Syria, to which we have been historically bound by friendly relations. Thank you for your attention.